Clearly one of the titans of the industry. I know you've seen cannabis transition from the legacy market to the legal now. So can you just talk to us a little bit about that experience and how that transition has kind of looked from your perspective?
Sure, be happy to. Not so many people have the background I do. So I started in the legacy market because that's the only market there was if you loved cannabis. And I started in the 1980s. My older brother, Steve, a lot of you know, my older brother, Steve DeAngelo. He's almost 10 years older than me. So he was my introduction to the plant, and you couldn't really ask for a better guide or mentor than my brother, Steve. So in high school, I started trading cannabis. I fell in love with cannabis. It helped me a lot with what I was going through at the time, physically and mentally. And I decided I wanted this plant in my life. And I intuitively knew as a teenager that cannabis just made people feel better. And we didn't know anything about the medical cannabis, and we didn't know anything about how it was really helping people out in the Bay Area. I grew up in Washington, D.C., so I was in this little town called Alexandria, Virginia. I went to high school there. And so I sold weed to mainly the theater kids and musician kids, and then, you know, the more, let's say, privileged classmates of mine were also good customers, and we were all stoners, you know. But in those days, you had to hide being a stoner, or else you got in big trouble. If you got caught with even a tiny little bit of weed, you get kicked out of school, you can't go to college, you can't get a student loan. You know, if you played sports like I did, you had to pee in a cup in order to, you know, be on the sports team. So it was a much different time. And it was a hard time. It was a really hard time to be a stoner. And that's why I worked to change the laws because it was not fun seeing all my friends and colleagues that I was trading cannabis with, or people that were growing cannabis out here in California that I knew, kept getting busted and going to jail, and their lives being ruined. And in some cases, people, you know, losing their lives because they get busted and they, you know, they can't, it's such a bad situation that they take their own life, or it's sometimes they, you know, die in prison or.